Essentially, what we're doing is trying to break generational cycles of child abuse and neglect, poverty, homelessness, human trafficking, exploitation. My boyfriend at the time came home and I said, I think you need to move out because I just had this encounter with God that I can't describe. So for about a year and a half, I lived in my truck. I had a gym membership, and that's where I would take my showers and stuff like that. And I still worked. I worked 2 jobs. Everybody thinks that it's the movie Taken, but really, it's familial trafficking, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. He helped her get on her feet. She had to return that favor. So he started to traffic her for commercial sex. I heard a young man's story, could have taken him out. And he just continued to rise and continue to rise and continue to move forward. We all want something now. We all want it to look the way that we want it. We expect things to look a certain way. We expect certain outcomes. You've been raped by a person. You've been trafficked by your parent. You put yourself through this situation, but that's not you. That doesn't define you.
Hey there, welcome back to another Broken to Build episode. I am Lauren Deloach, your host, and I am here with Jamie B. Jamie Bond is here today. I'm super pumped to get into our conversation, and before we do that, I will let you introduce yourself and just tell us a little snippet about you personally before we get into your story.
Awesome. So Jamie B, that's a new nickname for me. It's been James Bond my whole life because it's Jamie Bonding and nobody ever remembers it. So it's like Jamie Bond, James Bond.
That's a good
And then I
name.
got married and it's Ciancio and people can't pronounce it or spell it. So I'll stick with Jamie B. I like it.
Is that new? That's new from here, or other people call you Jamie B?
No, that's new from right now.
Okay.
You
well,
created
where it's
Jamie B.
It's a thing now.
Fresh chat. So I'm the vice president of advancement for an organization called Place of Hope. So we are South Florida's largest organization caring for children, human trafficking victims and survivors, single mothers with children facing imminent homelessness. Essentially, what we're doing is trying to break generational cycles of child abuse and neglect, poverty, homelessness, human trafficking, exploitation. So I've been on the team for almost 11 years, and it's a blessing.
That's a huge role. Just the working with that kind of trauma. I can't even imagine what you see on a day-to-day basis. We won't go there yet because I don't want to I don't want to jump into that. But tell me your story and what led you to this?
So it's definitely a calling for me. I was praying for purpose. I called them dangerous prayers. I read it in a book somewhere and it just stuck with me. I've been on the team now for about 11 years. It took about a year and a half to get on the team at Place of Hope because it took a lot.
What does that mean?
It took a lot of personal growth and exploration, a lot of prayer, a lot of faith. I took a significant pay cut coming from the restaurant industry. I was running restaurants at the time, and it was about a 60 or 70% pay cut. And so in order to do that, I needed to sell my house. So at 30 years old, I sold my house, called my mom and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to go work for this organization that was birthed out of the church to save kids that are in human trafficking." And she's like, "That sounds crazy, but I know that you'll always make the right decision, that you're thoughtful and prayerful." So it took a while, and I learned about Place of Hope through an invitation at church. I saw Christine Kane speak, and she's an evangelist out of Sydney, Australia, and she's Greek, but she's out of Sydney, Australia, and she is just on fire. And she lit a fire inside of me that I didn't know that had ever existed, and it gave me purpose. I had been praying really some dangerous prayers, just wanting purpose in my life. I had prior to that this encounter with God because I was kind of new to Christianity. I had this encounter with God, and he kind of came over me. And at the time, my boyfriend was living with me in my house that I bought, and he told me that he had bigger plans for me and that I needed to trust him. So my boyfriend at the time came home, and I said, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you need to move out because I just had this encounter with God that I can't describe. And doing this isn't a part of what he has in store." So it was a really scary time because
was he a believer?
No, not really. I mean, he grew up in the church. I grew up in the church. But I had lots of friends surrounding me that were just planting these seeds. And I just felt like there was this tug and this pull. And I was seeking it out kind of quietly because I was scared, kind of not ashamed or embarrassed, but I didn't know what to expect. And so his response was, "Oh, so you become a Bible thumper." I was like, wow, okay. this is what I'm getting into. Okay. So it took a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
So it took about a year and a half of just really praying and figuring out what was going to work. And I realized that I didn't have the answers. I didn't know what it looked like. I had no idea. I had to be completely faithful. So I literally dove in head first and really surrounded myself with people in the church and believers and people that I felt like would lift me up and would guide me and give me good direction. And so I would listen to them and then pray about it. And I went to like every church service, like just, trying to seek some sort of guidance. And I realized it was kind of in the stillness. And you had shared that God speaks to you in dreams. And I feel like that was kind of how he spoke to me as well. And yeah, long story short, it took about a year and a half. I applied to Place of Hope and they did not have a position for me. But I said, I don't know child welfare. I don't know human trafficking. I don't know any of this stuff, but I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I come from the corporate world. So I feel like I'm confident that I can take all of my gifts and my talents and things that I've learned in the corporate environment and apply them here because you are entrepreneurial in spirit as an organization. So they called me back and said, we'll create a position for you. It's starting at a very, very different pay, rate than what I was used to. So I did. I had to sell my house and move in with my mom for a period of time to save up those funds, downsize, got rid of some of my redneck toys, my, lifted trucks and my things,
Oh, I
and
love
went to
it.
a little tiny car that I said was like a skateboard. And it literally was an entirely new experience where I wasn't relying on myself. So I know I had a great upbringing and my parents are amazing. But we bounced around from churches to churches and it was very, I don't know, it was just very typical. So there wasn't a lot of depth. And it was a whole new experience. I had grown up learning that if you wanted something, you had to do it and you had to put your best foot forward and you had to climb the ladder. So
Yeah.
that's what thought I was doing. And I was, I was the first one in my family to go to college and put myself through college. I bought a house at 22 years old. Like did all these things that people in my family had never done before, but I didn't really have purpose. It was empty. It was a shell. So it was a whole new experience for me to rely on God. And just looking back even now, and I'll tell the story sometimes, I would hope that I would be as faithful now as I was then, because I could have never expected the journey that I've been on the last 11 years.
So I guess one of the things that comes to mind is because that's a huge, huge sacrifice to sell your house because you're taking this pay cut, move in with your mom, like all of these things that you worked to get out of your house, to buy a house at 22, you know, all of those things. Was there any point in that process that you were like, what am I doing? Like, was there any questioning, any like, oh my gosh, what if this ends up completely,
Mm-hmm.
like, what if I did all this and then I don't like it? Or, like, did you ever have any of those moments?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Um, yes, because it was completely unknown, but no, because I know that I just had this peace about everything that was happening because I knew it may not meet my expectations of what I thought in my mind, but I knew that it's what God wanted for me. I knew I had really, when I tell you I've read the Bible front to back, but I'm not one of the people that can go around and quote all those verses. I don't know all the things. And, but I just felt so truly in my heart and in my soul that there was peace, that if it didn't work out, it was an experience I'd learned from it, and that it was my history is not linear by any means anyways. So I knew that I could take something from it and learn from it, and then it would be a launch pad into whatever was supposed to happen. That was just kind of and that's how my mindset is, I think, for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that, whatever that end goal is, I mean, gosh, nobody wants to die. I don't want to die. But if that's the case, if I get to a car accident, if I hike a lot, if we fall off the side of a mountain, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that was supposed to be that moment. And this is what was learned from it. I always try to look at just what is God working, or what am I supposed to get out of this?
You have a not blind in a bad way, but like a blind trust in the Lord that he's always going to work it out.
Yeah.
Did you, stepping into Place of Hope, like you don't have a story that is similar to the children that you work with, correct? Or do you?
A little bit. So, I mean, I grew up with two amazing parents. We did not have much at all. My parents got divorced when I was, I was in probably seventh or eighth grade. My mom went through, a lot of different guys, not in a sexual way, but a lot of guys that she was starting to date and trying to get herself back out there. My dad had found someone and they were getting remarried, and I just didn't like what was happening in either way. I hadn't yet found the Lord. I hadn't become a believer. This was me still. So at 16, 17 years old, I did not like what was going on. I didn't find it beneficial for me. My mom was in her own world. I never saw my dad because he was always working. He had his own life. And then my younger brother was there. So I felt like I was kind of being that leader for him. But secretly, I was really, really unhappy. So I moved out. So I was 17, 16, going on 17. So for about a year and a half, I lived in my truck. My dad actually to this day still doesn't know this. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this. And if he does, he does.
Yeah.
My mom's aware. My husband's aware. My husband's very, it upsets him a lot that I went through that situation. So for about a year and a half, I lived in my truck, and I had a gym membership at the Gold's Gym that was out in Royal Palm. And that's where I would take my showers and stuff like that. And I still worked. I worked 2 jobs. I was bartending and serving, and I put myself through college and did all the things that I needed to do until I could, turn 18. Obviously, I wasn't in college at 18, but I did all the things that I needed to do to save up the money to put myself through college. At 18, I got my first apartment. It was not in a great place. But in the interim, I stayed with friends, so I would kind of couch surf if I needed to. I like to stay in my truck, but my friends' parents were like, you can't sleep in your truck in the driveway. Just come in the house, Jamie. Just sleep on the couch, or, we'll pull out the bed. So I resonate with feeling like you don't necessarily have, like, I had a support system, but I couldn't necessarily be honest and truthful with them because they were kind of in their own lives respectively.
So where did they think you were? Like, where did your mom think that you were when you were living in your
Staying
truck?
with friends. And then my dad just didn't really know what was going on. He thought I was staying with my mom, and it was a pretty dark place. There was about 2 years where I didn't talk to my dad. There was about 2 years where I didn't talk to my mom. So I was very angry and very lost for a long time. Probably took advantage of other people, manipulated situations to be able to survive and stay on top. But obviously never did anything illegal. But just really understanding. I think that's why I can talk about human trafficking and talk about exploitation and talk about the grooming process, because I was somebody who was looking at how I can control a situation, how I can manipulate things to be able to continue to move forward and protect myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't sit with, I don't resonate with the kids that are in foster care because I didn't go through that. I had experience growing up in a very humble area and driving back and forth from the other side of the state of Florida. So I'm from Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. We drive through the middle of the state, and I would see this poverty, and I had never been exposed to that, although we didn't have much. But there was things that broke my heart. So I feel like God was planting seeds since I was a little kid to be able to, so now, like, looking full circle at all the different things that we're a part of is really, really amazing.
Yeah. I love that part of your story because even though it's not the exact same, the feeling could be the same, like that rejection or abandonment or whatever. Like, you might not have been in foster care, but you can resonate.
Yep.
And that God was using that part of your story to get you to where you are now. So you go on staff with Place of Hope, and tell me a little bit about because you said, like, at the beginning when we were talking, you said you kind of had a misconception of human trafficking and that most people do. Tell us about, because I'm sure I have a misconception of it. Will you tell me more about that and about our misconceptions and what it actually, in reality?
So I learned about human trafficking when somebody invited me to Life Church out in Wellington, and I heard Christine Kane speak. So once I heard her speak, it put me down this rabbit hole of understanding what this looks like, because she said the state of Florida is ranked number 3 in the nation, and Palm Beach County, where I lived, was number 3 in the state. Like, I've been around, I've seen some things, but I've never seen human trafficking. How is that even possible? So I really started to learn about what that was, took commercial sexual exploitation classes. And then I spent a lot of time talking to the community. And what I've learned is that everybody thinks that it's the movie Taken. which my husband and I just watched again this past week. It was on like TNT or
Yeah.
and now with the movie The Sound of Freedom, everybody thinks like, oh, that's the new wave of the Taken. So it's this Hollywood. We put it in a box that it's only stranger danger, that it only happens in Eastern European countries, that it's women that are physically chained, restrained, put in cages, shoved in shipping containers, and that's what it is.
Right.
It's women that are in Thailand that are, in cages that you can just pick off a menu. Actually, a lot of people don't even know that. Um, so people think that it's these things when really, and those are components of it. But really, when we talk about human trafficking locally in the state of Florida in the United States, it's familial trafficking. There's gang trafficking, with just a lot of the border crisis and things that are happening. It's renegade trafficking. So you have your LGBTQ, IA plus. So these are folks that are former sex workers. These are kids that are in foster care that have aged out, that maybe were taken advantage of and were pimped out, were victims of trafficking, and now they're discarded by their pimp or their trafficker, or they were able to get out of the life one way or the other, and now they're trafficking themselves. Someone who has a vulnerability like the LGBTQIA or homeless, someone that has substance abuse issues, trafficking themselves as a means of survival to pay their bills, to pay for their drug habit, whatever that is. So that's their revenue stream.
Yep.
So familial trafficking is what we see the most at Place of Hope, just because of who we're serving. So that's somebody that's in their family exploiting and trafficking the kids. So parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters.
And they do that primarily for revenue as well. It's about money.
Yeah, it's for profit.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be, so profit is anything of commercial value. It doesn't have to be cash. So when we look at maybe a homeless kid who's prostituting himself, that commercial value, that profit is that place to sleep. So we have a documentary called Invisible that we did in 2019. And in that, we interviewed a Jacksonville Sheriff's deputy, and he was telling us about an investigation that he did with this girl that was homeless, and she was at a Burger King. And this guy came around, he saw her one day and offered her a meal. He could tell she was homeless or down and out, and offered her a meal. She said no. Next day came back, same thing, offered her a meal. She said okay. Over the course of a few weeks, he would do that over and over again, and then started to build a relationship and said, I can do more than just give you a meal. Like, I have a couch you can sleep on. Let me help you. Do you have a job? So he helped her get on her feet. And then after a period of time, 6 months, 8 months, she had to return that favor. So he started to traffic her for commercial sex. But prior to that, he was creating this relationship that was like a Romeo pimp. So he's creating this relationship, this fallacy, filling those vulnerabilities, and groomed her. And now he is the one that's in control of her situation.
Wow. I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, and there was just, I don't know if you saw it, a 60 person rescue out of Tampa Bay. So it was a 2-week investigation. It was over 100 people involved in the investigation, and they were able to save 60 kids from being trafficked. It was internet crimes against children, and there was a bunch of folks that admittedly were trying to meet up with minors for sex. So there was a huge bust in Tampa. Internet crimes against children is huge.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time. We're ramping up for back to school, and so I'll spend a couple of weeks talking to middle schoolers, high schoolers, teachers, guidance counselors, coaches, parents, to understand how these people are getting to our kids. I went to Royal Palm Beach High School, so I was there when Jeffrey Epstein was grooming those girls, and my next door neighbor was in the documentary. So it was very, very close to me, very near and close to me. And thank goodness that I did have enough of a head on my shoulders. And, my parents put that work ethic in me. So I was really focused on school and journalism and all of those types of things that going to the parties wasn't important, because had I gone to one, who knows where I'd be today.
Yeah. So what is the best for people out there like me that I would still say, like, after listening to this, I'm like, well, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that or experienced anything like that. What would your advice be for people to either look out for, or have we seen it and just not known what we're seeing?
Yeah, it's a lot of understanding of really what it looks like. So understanding someone's vulnerabilities and how somebody exploits those vulnerabilities. I would say just take an hour out of your day and get educated. We do education presentations all the time. I can customize them. I can come to you, put a group together. If you have kids or grandkids, put a group together. I'd be happy to help educate you. 45 minutes, hour of your time. It's well worth it.
Yeah.
And depending on who's in the group, and I can do it for a couple of people or a larger group. I just had a woman open her house and did a party with a purpose, got a bunch of friends together, had hors d'oeuvres and things like that because she wanted them to learn. But she said, do you have kids? You have grandkids. It's so important to understand now that we live in this digital age, just how these people are reaching our kids. So taking that a little bit of time out of your day. So I would say for them to reach out to me,
Okay.
I'd be happy to give them a quick presentation on things to look for, how to talk to their kids. Because it's not always focused on what's happening like at the airport, at a bus stop or something. You really need to be focusing on who is in your surroundings. Almost every single one of my presentations, somebody has come up to me, a parent, a kid, and said, this happened to my neighbor, this happened to my friend, or because I learned this, I was able to notice that and help make a report. Snapchat, I just did a couple of presentations with the town of Palm Beach Fire Rescue, and one of the girls said, I think what you're saying is happening to my neighbor's kids. And she remembered little things that she had seen that felt
Wow.
kind of off, but she was just like, it's not really my place to get involved. But we want to focus on what's happening in our circle, the people that we have context of what their life looks like, so we can understand if there's an abnormality, something that stands out, that's changed.
Gotcha. So with that, with what does Place of Hope, like how does Place of Hope, I know there's lots of facets that they help intervene, rescue, all of the things. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we have right now, it's 10 ways as we're talking about, human trafficking, but I'll boil them all down. So we're providing affordable transitional housing for those who are over 18 and are victims of human trafficking, survivors of human trafficking, or at risk youth. So single moms with kids who could be vulnerable because they need a place to stay and it puts them in a situation. We're also providing that for kids that are in foster care. So kids that have come through, they're verified victims, survivors, and then again at rescue. So organically through our model, providing that safety, that stability, this picture of what family looks like and normalcy looks like, trying to remove some of those vulnerabilities so that way they're less vulnerable to be exploited. We're one of the only agencies in Florida providing housing for verified victims and survivors because there's high quality therapeutic care that they need and they deserve, and we privately raise those funds. We raise about $100,000 a year just to provide them that quality therapy that they need, the trauma-informed care.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some very young, very, very young. I was sharing with Gus the other day, you wouldn't even think some of these kids could come in pregnant, but they have been trafficked, they've been raped, and now they're pregnant. So to understand how young they are and what they need at that age,
Yeah.
it takes very highly qualified and special targeted care. So we privately raise funds for that and provide that. We're doing education presentations out in the community. We're doing internet crimes against children presentations, trying to prevent, it's an upstream thinking, so trying to prevent other traffickers, pimps, pedophiles from predators reaching our kids. We partner with the Florida Human Trafficking Victims Fund, which is something that's newer. So we've been a partner with them, a core organizational partner for about 2 years. So that's providing funding for sting operations, for restoration and recovery. So we're waiting to find out if that 60 bust was a part of what we're doing, what we're funding.
Yeah.
So we'd be very excited to find out if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because we're providing funding for maybe some smaller municipalities who maybe don't have the technology to do the internet crimes against children or to provide a sting, or they need additional funding for a sting.
Yeah.
Crime Stoppers, we work with the Florida Attorney General, which is why we're able to say that we're statewide. So we're doing a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with coming back to your personal story, you took a leap of faith to do this the past 11 years. Tell me about that. Like, it doesn't seem like there's an ounce of regret or so
there's not.
Tell me about the last 11 years.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I come from the corporate world, and then coming from the corporate world into the nonprofit world, it's so different. Ministry is so different in and of itself. So having those three worlds kind of collide was interesting. Coming into it, I was very like, very focused, very business
Yeah.
mindset. And our COO, Shannon, I love her. She's like, I love that you are, all these things, but we need to make you a little more fluffy. Like, not everybody's used to the, hey, good morning, all right, let's get this done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
not fluffy. I have to be more fluffy. So working on that,
Maybe introducing yourself as Jamie B.
yeah,
Like
that's
the
fluffy.
rap
Yeah, I feel like
artist.
I need like a little
Yeah.
on the side.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so I've had to work on being more fluffy, being
Mhm.
more politically correct and how you say things, right?
Yeah.
Learning that sandwich where it's like the positive, the constructive criticism, the
Totally.
positive.
Yep.
Um, it's really helped me grow into the person that I am. Looking back, I'm still the same person I was 10, 11 years ago, but so much more refined, iron sharpens iron. And
Yes.
Shannon really taught me, Colossians 3:23. So, do everything like you're working for the Lord, just doing everything with excellence. So it just helped me put a new filter on how I look at everything, a new perspective. And really, Charles, our CEO, he throws curveballs all the time. So I've learned just always be prepared, expect the unexpected, and push through a situation that makes you really uncomfortable because God is stretching you, he's always saying. And there's lots of instances where I'm sick to my stomach. I do not want to do this. I don't want to put myself out there, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And afterwards, I'm like, yes, I'm so glad that I did that because now looking back, I feel so much more confident, or I learned this, or this was an epiphany. It was like that light bulb moment. So it has really grown me as a person.
I love that. I had a counselor once give me a picture of that, and she had a hula hoop and she put it on the ground and she's like, the hula hoop is your comfort zone. She was standing in the middle of it. She's like, this is your comfort zone. Once you step out of it, then she moved the hula hoop and she's like, now this is my new comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so we can do hard things. And when we force ourselves, or when God not forces us, but invites us
Yeah.
to take those steps,
Yeah.
they're ultimately for our good and ultimately growing us into who he
Yeah.
has us being.
And even if it's a disaster feeling, right?
Mhm.
Again, it's my expectation. But even if I felt like it was a disaster, I learned something from
Yeah.
that, and I realized that maybe I need to take it from this angle, or this is what I need to do better. And so I've had so many board members and people that I've watched along the way and will come up to me afterwards and they'll say, like, it's incredible to see your growth because you get to know people so intimately.
Yeah.
And it's been really nice to see. So any of those times that I get that call from Charles, hey, can you go on the press in an hour? I'm like, that's not what I had planned today.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put on some makeup. Let's do my hair. Like, let's try to look like a normal human being.
Yeah.
Put this on hold. And then I'm like, what am I going to say? Do I even know this topic? And he's like, you're going to be fine. You'll kill it. So it's just always like understanding, again, putting my expectation aside. What is the purpose of this? What can everybody else get out of it? And that's something that I struggled with for a long time, is wanting to be like everybody else on stage, hitting all those points
Mm.
and putting on this show for people. And then I realized I'm the only one that knows what I'm going to say. And I know that God's going to use whatever I'm saying to hit the people that needed to hear what they needed to hear that day.
Mm-hmm. With your story, with the broken pieces, with your parents getting divorced, with homelessness, I mean, living in your truck, living with friends, with now the fact that you experience trauma through people every day. Tell me a little bit about the things that bring you hope, or the story that has given you like, oh, this is why I do what I do. This is what keeps me going. Share some of that side of it, because just from personal experience, my dad is retired from the sheriff's office. First responders, all you guys experience is trauma. And that's a calling. That's a very hard place to be. So tell me about the hope that you have and that you walk in and live in.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. I mean, there's been a lot of different pieces, name calling, People, you feel like you almost have the scarlet letter A, except, it's a cross. Like when you're a believer, sometimes the people that are falling away and you just, feeling like you're alone, feeling like you have no way out, you don't know what way to go. Just and then getting to place of hope and hearing these stories. And my husband's a police officer,
Okay.
as well, so we both, they're just like trauma on trauma.
Yeah.
Um, for me, as I mentioned, there's a lot of just peace for me, but the stories for what I do, I came to Place of Hope through that lens of human trafficking. And then I heard a young man's story. And Will Clarabelle, who actually works for us on our staff now, I say that he's my one, because I saw his story from when he came into Place of Hope. And I've seen all of these things that could have knocked him down, that could have taken him out. And he just continued to rise and continue to rise and continue to move forward through what we're providing at Place of Hope, through the community. There are hundreds of thousands of people that support Place of Hope. They're supporting the Wills. They're supporting the Mary Browns, who's another girl who keeps me going day in and day out. And it's so incredible to understand that there is a community of people out there who care so much, and they don't even know these kids. They don't even know me. There were people that came along my side and said, let me support you. The naysayers are over there. Your ex-boyfriend, he can call you all he wants. We are going to walk alongside you. So surrounding myself with like-minded people, always trying to be that smaller fish in a bigger pond, and surrounding myself with people who I know are going to lift me up, that are going to be a sounding board to just let me speak. And that's what my COO is. Shannon, I mentioned her earlier. She is that person that I can go to for anything and everything. And she's going to listen. She's going to give me guidance, but she's not going to tell me what to do. She's going to remind me to pray about it. She's going to remind me to have my own intimate conversation with God, to be thoughtful about it. But for me, really what's hopeful is just knowing that there are so many people around us. If we allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to speak to them, to go to them, and to pray to God in your own way and have that conversation, to know that tomorrow the sun's going to come up, and that tomorrow is going to be a better day, and that there's something that I've learned out of every situation. And with our kids, understanding that there's, what you went through is not in vain. There is a reason for everything that you've gone through. It makes you who you are.
Yeah. I have one last question for you. And I ask this because I think a lot of the listeners would probably think this way. I know I have thought this way in the past, but when you go through something that's dark or deep, or whether it's homelessness or trafficking, or like even in our own lives, the things that we go through where we're like, God, where are you? In working in the industry that you do, I'm sure there are people that would see that and be like, God, where are you? What would you say to people that are in that spot? Everyone's going through their own stuff, but we all have those moments of God, where are you? And you see those moments probably on a daily basis. What would you say to those people?
Trust his timing. For me, I have to tell myself that all the time. Is to just trust his timing. We all want something now. We all want it to look the way that we want it. We expect things to look a certain way. We expect certain outcomes. But if you would have asked me 10 or 11 years ago what my life would look like right now, it's impossible for me to even understand that. Somebody at the very, very beginning, when I was just starting to get into Christianity, in that walk, with Christ, they prayed over me, and I don't remember the verse. You might know what it is, but they reminded me that God lights our path one step at a time.
Mhm.
If he lit the whole path, we'd say, absolutely not. I can't do that.
out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. So looking back, if you would have asked me, 11 years, would you be married? Would you, all these different things, would you have done this? Would you stand on stage in front of 800 people? And would you go to Tallahassee and lobby? Would you drive to Tampa overnight at the drop of a hat to go meet with the Florida Attorney General to spread awareness about human trafficking? Would you do all of these things?
Yeah.
I'd be like, who, me? I'm not capable of, I'm not worthy, I'm not this. And you'd come up with all of these excuses and you would sabotage yourself.
Yeah.
So just understanding that, yes, bad things happen. But there's something that's to be learned out of them. But then at the same time, God, God is so God that we can't necessarily understand everything. It's not our place to understand everything. There's pieces that fall into a much bigger plan. For me, it's just understanding what purpose do I fill? What purpose do I serve every single day, and how I can just be the best that I can be. But who also can I influence that's in my life, and then who's pouring into me and who I can pour into.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And that's such a good reminder about, I believe the verse you're referring to is Proverbs, but it's such a good reminder because I think for all of us, if God showed us the end product, I don't know many people would be like, okay, let's keep going,
Yeah.
or what it takes
Right.
to get there.
Yep.
So not even the like, oh, this is great. Like, cause that's, you've got a big role. Like you've got, like, he uses you in so many ways and we might feel unworthy, but even the brokenness and the stuff that you have to go through to get there,
Yep.
I know for me personally, I would have been like, no, thanks God. Like, I'm out. This is what I have to go through. Like, pick someone else.
Right.
And so I think that's such a good reminder for people. I know that I said the last question was the last question, but I totally lied. I have one more. I've heard through a lot of people when Place of Hope sits down with people, there's um, a no judgment zone where people feel open to share, be authentic, share their story, and not feel judged. Tell me how you guys achieve that, because I know a lot of people have dealt with, well, I don't want to be authentic because this person will judge me, or that church will judge me, or this will judge me. And so, how have you guys managed to look at the real raw stuff, the brokenness of people's lives, and still maintained, hey, I felt accepted and loved? And tell me about that.
It all starts back with our purpose. Why are we even here? What is the purpose of Place of Hope? Our purpose is to break generational cycles, to stop kids from entering into the foster care, to stop kids from becoming homeless, from being exploited. In order to do that, we have to understand where they came from, what broke them, what caused all of these things to happen to lead them to where they are. So we have to be empathetic. We have to listen. We have to really meet people where they are and understand. We can't expect them to heal. We can't expect to genuinely put them on the right path or make real suggestions that are going to work for them if we don't truly know where they're broken, what's happening or what has happened. It's like going to the hospital and they're just slapping a medication. Well, this will, prevent the symptoms from coming back. Instead of figuring out what is the actual problem. In order to heal and to get to the next step, we have to understand where you came from. So we have to be completely and wholeheartedly in love with the people that are there. We truly love you as a person. I don't care what has happened to you. I mean, I do, but it doesn't make you who you are.
Yeah.
Understanding that you've been raped by a person, you've been trafficked by your parent. You put yourself through this situation. Okay, but did you really? Where did it start? When you were 6 years old and you were molested by your uncle, and then your dad puts you through, and now this is how you identify. But that's not you. That doesn't define you.
Right.
So it's always remembering what is our purpose, what is our end goal, and we want to lift people up. We want to advance the kingdom. So we have to put all of our judgment aside, our pride aside, all of our assumptions, and we just have to literally be the hands and the feet. We have to be Jesus and meet people where they are.
I love that. And I do think you hit on a very important point of a lot of times in the Christian world, it's behavior modification. Well, I want to see your behavior change. And it's like, no, that's not it. It's a heart issue. And where did that heart issue start? Where did that trauma start? And so I think that's so important that all of us remember, and even include when it comes to ourselves too, having grace for like, oh, wait, this is my behavior, but that's not who I am. Let me get to the root of it. Let me get to the heart issue and figure out, and then invite Jesus in to heal that specific.
We had a girl that was 12 or 14 that came into care. And she said, I worship the devil. I don't belong here, Miss Gina, to our clinical director. She goes, I worship the devil. And Gina said, oh, you're in the right place. And, it took a long time. It took 3 years of modeling for her, loving on her, letting her have the behaviors,
Yeah.
but within guidance, and then buffering them and then showing and modeling and showing and loving on her, being genuine. 3 years later, she's in the front giving her hands, or lifting her hands, singing worship, and giving her life to Christ. Prior to that, her boyfriend was selling her. So she said, while you keep me in here, you're taking money out of his pocket. So there's all these behaviors. You can't modify that behavior. You have to literally genuinely start from the beginning and find out why she's so lost and broken.
I love that. I had a prior podcast guest telling me about his experience. His wasn't, trafficking or anything, but he was meeting with this guy that worked at a church, and they were meeting every Friday to talk about God. But he's like, I would come in sometimes hungover, always high, but I would meet with him every Friday. And he said, at some point, I was like, bro, this has to bother you. Like, I'm coming in here to listen to you talk about Jesus. I'm like, I'm high. I'm high every week. And the guy said, well, let's just keep meeting and talking about Jesus and deal with that later. And so then a few weeks later, this guy was with his friends, and he was like, I was smoking, I was getting high. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, like, I don't feel good about this. Something feels off.
Yeah.
And it was like such that story. And then the story you just shared is like, if we can all just have the love of Christ for each other and not try to change and modify and like, I'm going to love you where you're at and God's going to take care of the rest.
Yep.
I think that is such a beautiful lesson, and one for me that I need. And because sometimes it's hard to love people where I'm like, God,
it helps me in my marriage, right?
Yes,
So I just remembering, like, it's so easy to like want to attack something, and it's like, but there's a better way to go about it.
Yes.
And just understanding. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Letting God do it. I'll let God do it. I will love you because that's what he told me to do.
Yeah.
And if there's things that need to change and be brought up, he will do that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I've loved this conversation.
I'm
It's
glad
been
I
great.
did.
We made it through. I almost, when you were telling me that story about that.
Yeah, girl, your eyes
I was
a little
like,
glassy.
It's fine. I'm not gonna cry. It's fine.
Yep.
So, guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode, and be sure to tune in next week for the next Broken to Build podcast.